So what was J.K. Rowling doing with Harry Potter?
Well, it's the battle between good and evil. I mean,
Right.
Voldemort is Satan for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
So it's the battle between good and evil. I mean, the second volume in particular is St. George and the Dragon. It's Bilbo and the Dragon. Harry fights a giant snake that's under the castle. It's the same story as The Lord of the Rings. The oldest story we have of that sort is a Mesopotamian creation myth where a god named Marduk attacks a giant dragon named Tiamat. And that's one of the oldest religious tracts that we have. It's symbolic of humanity, right? The human being goes out there and encounters the terrible unknown, often in reptilian form. And that terrible unknown, well, that's why that terrible unknown is often evil itself. And so in Christianity, you get this weird intermingling, for example, of the snake in the Garden of Eden with Satan. It's not obvious why there should be a connection.
Yeah.
Snake, Satan.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what's the worst snake? It's not a snake. It's snakes as such. Well, it's not snakes as such. It's predators as such. Reptilian predators. Wait a minute. It's not reptilian predators as such. It's enemies. It's human enemies. It's the enemy in our own soul. That's the progression of the thought.
Wait,
it's unbelievably sophisticated.
How does it go from
insanely sophisticated?
How does it go from enemies to the enemies in our own soul?
Well, who's your worst enemy if it's not you? Who's your biggest obstacle if it's not you?
And
I mean, who do you contend with more than anyone else if it's not you?
And to the Harry Potter thing, Harry Potter has a piece of Voldemort in him.
Yes, well, that's the original sin doctrine recreated.
So
it's also the case that he can't understand evil without it. It's also part of what makes him sophisticated, right? Because he's being touched by it.
Yeah. So is that what we got to do? Is just copy the Bible? Like
we don't have a choice.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
It happens whether we want it to or not. I mean, the Bible aggregated itself over centuries, right? I mean, no human being directly oriented that. It's not something that could happen over thousands and thousands of years.
This is just the greatest hits.
That's one way of thinking about it, yes.
And each one of these hits taps into something innate to us.
Yes. Otherwise, we wouldn't remember it.